So this week I had 4 of my clients come to me and say, oh my God, I've had these enormous opportunities come to me and I'm feeling huge amounts of doubt and fear. So I want to talk to you about why that happens and some of the coaching that I gave them so that it might also support you if you're getting huge opportunity but noticing the big doubt. So first of all, why does that happen? So especially for women. So you've probably seen the research and the studies HP put out a number of years ago. For a woman to apply for a job, we need to feel confident in almost 100% of what's on the job description for us to feel like we're going to go for it. Right? For men, they need to feel confident in about 60% of it for them to say, I'm going to go for it. And why is that? The why behind that is because of the way that our brain works. So one of the strongest parts of our brains is the limbic system for women, and it makes us amazing collaborators. It makes us amazing multitaskers, right? That's why we're great peacekeepers, right? It's why we can take on incredible amounts of projects at the same time and just knock it out of the park. However, it also makes us really anxious. It's also our worry center of our brain. So think about this. If you happen to be a mom, have you ever had the experience where you decide spontaneously to go on a trip, right? And if you have a male partner, they're more likely to be like, throw the kids in the car, let's go. And you're like, dude, did you pack the bag? Do we have the food, the snacks, the jackets? Do you have diapers? And your partner, if they are male, will say, don't worry about it, we'll get it on the way. And you're like, oh my God, what if they don't have the right ones? And what if there's not a stop? And what if the store is closed? Very typical in the way that our brains work. We are planners and we make sure that everything is taken care of, right? This is why we want to make sure that we know how to do almost 100% of the job before we apply for it, right? We want to make sure we have everything prepared before we go on the trip. Whereas our male counterparts are like, don't worry about it, we got this, right? So that's just part of how our brain works. We tend to have a higher level of anxiety and worry, which keeps us from just going for it. However, there are things that we can do to override that, to retrain our brains, because our brains are very elastic. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what we do so that when a huge opportunity comes our way and we think, I don't know exactly how to do that. I don't have all the training for that. I've not done it before. We can still go after the opportunity because it's in that experience, right? It's in that moment. My clients had this week, right? One client said, this is the opportunity I've been waiting for, right? But it's just like one step outside of what I've been doing in my business, but it's what I want to be doing. But then someone came to me and said, can you do it? And I thought, I've never done it before. Maybe I'm crazy, right? So what do we do to override the fear and the doubt that rushes in that moment? Let me explain to you. So because of the way that our brain works, what rushes in is the fear and the doubt. We often call that an imposter syndrome, or I call it your fraud story. So you start to tell yourself all the reasons you probably can't do it, okay? So what I want you to do is, if you're in the situation where you want to go for something big, but you start to hear the story of why maybe you're not quite qualified, what we want to do is we want to slow down the story. And we actually want to go line by line, okay? So what are all the things that your brain's telling you? Write them each down because they're actually really useful information. And then for each thing that your brain is telling you, which are usually things like, I don't have the training for it, I don't have the experience, I've never done that before, I'll probably fail. Things along those lines. Write them down very specifically. And I want you to go through each one of them. And I want you to just write down, is it true or is it false? And sometimes it seems kind of gray, but if it's 75% true, then write true, okay? So if it's actually 75% true, great, write true. And if it's false, then write false. So if you know that it's false, then that's just a story you're telling yourself. And you need to write down what the true story is next to it, okay? If it's false, if what you said was, I actually don't have the experience for that, and you look and you see, well, that's actually false. I do have the experience, then write down the experience. If it's true that you don't have the experience, then all I want you to do is write down what you'd have to do to get the experience, okay? So the deal with your imposter or your fraud story is that it takes over and it clamps you down. But what you do with it is you take specific steps. One, to tell yourself the actual truth, right? And two, to take the steps you need to take to get the experience, to get the training, if that's actually what you need. But 80% of the time, what you actually need is just to tell yourself what the real story is. Actually, you know what? I have plenty of experience for that. In fact, I've done these 3 projects that are really similar. That's the new story. But you've got to tell it to yourself enough so that your brain starts to hear that instead of, I'm not qualified, I can't do this, oh my God, I will probably fail. Okay? So, if you've got a big opportunity in front of you, but your brain is starting to freak out and tell you, no, I'm not doing it, I want you to write down the facts. What's true, what's not true. Okay? And then retrain your brain to believe what is actually true. And if you need some support, then get the support you need. The extra training, maybe an extra teammate, whatever that is. And then go out and do the thing that you really want to do. I love you. Go get it.